Welcome to a special episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. In our bonus episodes, we like to give some airtime to stories and individuals that are doing something just that little bit special. And today, to celebrate International Women's Day, we have the wonderful Emily Goldfischer, founder and editor-in-chief at hertelia.com. Coming up on today's show, Emily sets the tone with this.
I'm feeling like I'm in great company with you, Phil.
Phil reveals his priorities. Like, how can I get to the food? That's it. And Emily shares her main reason why Hertelia exists.
You know, they're just women doing incredible things in hospitality.
All that and so much more as Emily shares her story with us, as well as some of the wonderful stories coming out of hospitality from its amazing female workforce. Please don't forget to give us a like, subscribe and review on whatever podcast platform you're listening. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to this special episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. And it's special because today is International Women's Day. And to mark this special occasion, we've gone out there and gotten ourselves an awesome lady doing some awesome work. And that's none other than the fabulous founder of hertelia.com, Emily Goldfischer. A huge welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm really so pleased to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, how are you anyway?
I'm great. It's sunny. And I actually, on my run this morning, I listened to your episode with Joanne Taylor-Stagg, who is amazing, and also was featured on Hertelia. So I really enjoyed that episode. And she's such a phenomenal leader and so inspiring.
Yeah. Do you know what I love about her is that, to me, she is hospitality. Like, she's very serious business lady who knows her stuff, but can absolutely turn on the fun when the fun is needed.
Yeah, 100%. And you can tell that her team, really loves her and is inspired by her.
Yeah. I mean, who'd have thought that looking after your team would pay dividends down the line, eh? I mean, it's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I believe we need to do a virtual high five because this is how we got connected, because we both got recognized for our work from the Hospitality International Institute or something like that as being top 25 global hospitality influencers. How does that make you feel?
I'm feeling like I'm in great company with you, Phil. So, that took me by surprise.
Likewise,
and I was thrilled, like you. I mean, how long has your podcast been going on?
We're in April this year. It will be 2 years.
Okay, so
with a small gap.
Hertelia launched on Women's Day last year. So in 1 year, right. Or less than a year even, that was just amazing recognition, and I'm so grateful to them at International Hospitality Institute because it's actually really enabled me to meet people like you. It's just gotten the site a lot more recognition. So
yeah,
yay.
Yeah, I can't tell you the downloads I had the week after that. It's just lovely when other people. I didn't get into this to take awards or anything like that. I do this because I love it. But for somebody externally to recognize and it just makes you feel that people are listening and the work that you're doing is important.
100%. And it's like we were saying, it's just when you're putting things out on the internet, that's always the thing are people going to watch? Are people going to, listen to this? Are people going to read this? So yes, that validation feels good. Yeah,
absolutely. Great stuff. Well, I mean, we might as well go all the way back to the beginning then. And tell us the story of you and how did you end up doing what you're doing?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Phil. I basically accidentally got into hospitality, but I am really a hotel nerd. Like, I love the business of hotels. I love understanding how they work. I love the back end understanding about the real estate aspect of it. And then, of course, to me, the stories of all the people. But how I got started was I went to Cornell University, actually not for the hotel school.
Right.
I went to study natural sciences and basically started taking biology with all the pre-med students at Cornell. And by October, realized that that just was not going to be a good situation for me. I just could
But
not.
better to find these things out early.
Yeah, exactly. And even though the textbook was like this big and about 10 pounds, and I don't know if you've ever been to Ithaca, but it's really hilly. And I
Right.
carried that thing around. And but somehow it's like you think by carrying it, it's gonna go from the backpack into the brain. It just didn't, it didn't work out that way. And I actually always, was interested in business, and I had an older brother who had gone through the hotel school, and he was like, "Why don't you have a look?" And I did that, and I transferred over, and I loved it. Like I was like, I found my people, and I found my program, and I have to say the education there is tremendous. It's a really great fundamental program for understanding any business, and then it's all just applied to hospitality and food and beverage and travel. And so it was super fun. And from there, I ended up actually graduating in a time where the business wasn't as robust. So, I mean, a different situation than now, where you have a really tight labor market. And I just kind of fell into PR because I saw an advertisement for a PR firm that, was like, it's project work. You learn about the business, you write, working with journalists, and it sounded really fun to me. And so I did that. I basically started out working for a small agency that just had clients in the Caribbean, around the US, and doing the very basic writing press releases or learning how to write press releases and just working with journalists, writing reports, the things that you do at a first job.
Right.
And I really loved it. And I had some amazing bosses there who really took me under their wing, all of which I actually keep in touch with today. So I think that's a testament to the kind of people they are. Yeah, so it just really suited me because also I love to read. I love to read full stop, but I particularly love to read the news.
There's no news happening now, is there?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting times. But
Yeah.
I guess I always feel that way, that there's always something interesting going on in the world. And then how does that relate to hospitality? What are the consumer trends? What's coming down the pike? This is kind of like my favorite time of the year, January, where people put all the predictions out, what's going to happen in the next year.
Yeah.
We've written a lot about that in Hotelier. So yeah, so that's kind of my journey. And then from the agency, I went to work for Lowe's Hotels in house, which was an incredible opportunity for me because it was a brand, a USA brand. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Do you know Lowe's?
Oh yes. No, actually, it's not spelt how you think it's going to be spelt, if I recall.
Right, exactly. It's
Yeah,
Loews.
that's the one. Yeah.
And at the time that I joined, they had around 20 hotels. They were growing. I was able, it's a small corporate office. So I was working with the CEO, the head of, all the departments, the head of operations, the head of marketing. And it was just an amazing exposure. I mean, I started there in my late 20s and I stayed there for 10 years and I opened 10 hotels with them, mostly a lot of them in Orlando, which is tons of fun because their property, they operate all the properties on the grounds of Universal, so
Right.
that makes
That's
for
one or
memorable
two.
work trips.
Yeah.
Roller coaster rides,
Well, it's
and
important that you understand the product, right? That
you
you've got
have
to
to.
experience everything.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, that I love rides, so that was really one of the highlights, and just the incredible kind of showmanship of working with an entertainment company like Universal was a real learning experience for me as well.
Yeah.
But we also opened hotels in New Orleans, Philadelphia. We had hotels in California, so it was Arizona. It was a great, great place to work. And the CEO at the time, he's the chairman now, is Jonathan Tish, and he is a real leader, very inspiring man who has been a very forceful figure in the U.S. Travel Association and a leader for the industry. So that was just really rewarding to work for him.
Yeah, I suppose it's when you get the opportunity to work with visionaries and inspiring people that that's can connect you with your best work, right? And the moment where you feel like, okay, I've found my home here because I have an opportunity to be led and inspired on a daily basis.
Yeah, he is exactly that kind of person. I mean, John is he's really he he feels a sense of responsibility to the industry and to all the employees at Lowe's. So I think that's really, like you said, very inspiring. Yeah. So then let's see. Yeah, from Lowe's, I actually my husband had an opportunity to move to London for his job, and at the time, I have two children. We have two children, and they were small, and we were like, okay. They said, oh, you'll go for 2 years. And that was in 2010. And at the time, the Olympics were coming. The Queen was having her Diamond Jubilee. I mean, there were so many things. Like there was the royal wedding. I mean, we could not have picked a better time to move to London, which I have to say we both of us already really liked. We both love to travel, and so we thought this is going to be great. We're going to get to live in London and travel, and we'll move back to New York in a couple of years and have had that wonderful life experience. And we never left.
Yeah,
We
still
love
here.
London. We love London, and until the pandemic, basically, it's been a dream, an absolute dream to live here. But of course, over the last few years, not being able to see family. My husband's actually from Argentina, so he hasn't been able to go home in about 3 years. So
Bless, yeah.
yeah, but other than that, still we love it here. And now that the pandemic is hopefully behind us, brighter days ahead.
Yeah, well, I am an eternal optimist, and I look to 2022 as the year where we get on with life. Now, whatever normal looks like now has probably changed forever, but nevertheless, just allowing people to. I mean, it feels like we're there, but who knows, right? None of us are doctors that work in this line of work, so we've just got to go with what we're told.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they just announced the repealing all these COVID measures. So actually, well, by the time you air this, I guess we would have been a couple weeks into that. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully, this is the year that your husband can get back to
well, he's booked to
Argentina.
go in. Yeah, he's booked to
Right.
go in March to see his family. So yeah, and hopefully I'll get back there soon as well.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's a country I've never actually been, but I love the wine. So
Yeah, the wine is great. It's we've obviously been many times over the years, and it is a beautiful country. The people are amazing. Um, and every time we go, we try to do something different. And I love Mendoza as the wine region, and there's actually tons to do there as well. Like we've gone zip lining, you go like rafting.
really
I mean, it's very adventurous as well as all the wine and the food.
mm,
And what I would say about Argentina is it's a great value. I mean, if you compare the quality of the food and the experience that you get, the pound or the dollar goes really far there.
excellent. That's what's already on the list. So don't worry about that. But yeah. So what happened next? Where did you go next when you got to
Yeah,
London?
so we moved to London, and I flip side of the coin. So basically, I went from being a publicist and communications director for Lowe's Hotels to working as a journalist. And I started writing for Questex. And from there, which I loved. So I still do it. I cover all the London hotels for Luxury Travel Advisor and Travel Agent, which are two publications that go to travel agents in the US. And that's been a great situation for me. And I love, like I said, I'm a hotel nerd. I love the business. I love meeting general managers. I love meeting, the food and beverage team, housekeepers. Like I just love people that work in hospitality. I love hearing their stories and how they, operate day to day. And then, the pandemic hit, and I had started to notice, I would say, over the last 5 years that women, I think everyone in the industry is aware that it's a heavily male dominated industry, particularly at the leadership levels. And in the US, there's an association called the Castell Project, which has been researching and tracking this for the last 5 years. And I guess I noticed that, as well as, there were more people like Joanne, other women who were getting these top GM jobs, top jobs in corporate offices, and that there was research and things being done about women, but there was not a place where, as a woman working in a hotel, I could go to get information and news about what's happening with women
Right.
in the business in a dedicated way. I just thought, well, if I'm ever going to do it, now's the time. Everybody's stuck home. And I did. And then I'm doing it with a friend of mine, a former colleague, stroke friend, stroke mentor, Nancy Mendelson,
Yeah.
who she writes a weekly column. She's been encouraging me the whole time and just really a wonderful support to me and in launching the site and also keeping it going, because I think, as we both said, when you start something and you just don't know if it's gonna, what's gonna happen with it on the internet, and just seeing what happens, and when you're not sure if anything's happening, you think, well, should I quit? And I have to say, Nancy has really kept me from quitting. And now we're at a year, and it's amazing, actually, all the stories that have come out. We've done almost 200 stories about women working all different jobs in hotels, and just it's been incredible, the community that's formed around the site. And yeah, so it's just been a great ride, actually.
That's brilliant. And I think the thing that we talked about, I think before we put the microphone on, around that, when you do something that you're putting out into the public domain, actually the most important thing of all of that is that you're doing it because you love it, because you feel passionate about it, and the like. Everything else will come if that's the case, because I think it is just a case of, if you're passionate about it, the chances are there are many other people that are passionate about it as well, and you're proving that with, I suppose, now what you've been able to produce within a year is quite phenomenal, and it also demonstrates that it was something that was necessary and needed.
Yeah, the response has been amazing, and I guess also and I think you've experienced this with your podcast as well, is just like the incredible people that you meet all over the world. I mean, I've met women in Africa, like places I've never been, and now I'm like, oh, I gotta go there. Like, I have to go to Senegal now. Like, it's just the incredible people. I mean, we covered a woman who runs a hotel in Mongolia with Preferred Hotels. Just like, they're just women doing incredible things in hospitality.
Yeah.
So it is great to have it all in one place. And, I think representation does matter. I think for young women to see all the different possibilities, all the different possible career paths. I mean, everything from, we've covered a champagne maker, there's sommeliers, there's bartenders, there's a woman who runs all of the hotel brokerage and asset management for JLL. I mean, she's running a business that's, I think they did 5 billion in transactions over the last few years. I mean, it's just the breadth of opportunity in hospitality is unbelievable.
That's a message I completely share. And it was definitely something that I think the perception sometimes is that it's chefs and waiters and receptionists, and that's kind of it. But actually, the breadth of opportunity is phenomenal. I mean, just look at you as an example as well. You're a writer, and you're writing within the realms of hospitality. And so literally think of anything that you can do, and you can probably do it in hospitality and
Yeah,
have a laugh while you're at it as well.
exactly. I mean, it's such a fun industry. And yeah, I mean, in terms of, I didn't really talk about what public relations is, but it's certainly as a career changed a lot since I got into the business. I mean, before I left Lowe's, I launched their Facebook page. At that time, Instagram didn't even exist. So
Right.
if you think about that, like I launched the Facebook and Twitter for them, and now, social media management for hotels is that's a job. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like a really full time job, and yeah, content management. All the evolution of the technology around hospitality has been unbelievable. I mean, that's one of the themes. So there have been a couple of themes that have come up from looking at the site over a year and what we've covered.
Mm.
And one of them is just, the amazing innovation that women have been able to accomplish. So one of the things we wrote about like a QR code based solution for hotels called Tip Brightly, which is essentially a way for hotel operators to allow employees that aren't getting tipped now because nobody's carrying cash. So now you can do this QR code, post it in the room, or the employee can carry like a business card. And if you want to tip a housekeeper or a bellman, anybody can get tipped now through this kind of technology. And,
Right.
it was a woman who came up with that, which is amazing. Yeah. So, I think also in another theme where we've seen women doing amazing things is sustainability. Have you had Sue Williams on your show?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
She
she
is
would be.
absolutely on the list.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, she runs a hotel in the Cotswolds, and she's, just really taken on this whole sustainability effort. She was awarded, I think, the most sustainable hotel by the caterer last year, and or this, in 21, the most recent year.
Yeah.
And what's amazing about Sue is that she's done it, and now she's sharing it with everybody because she just wants every hotelier to be able to be more sustainable. And she's also proven, by operating a luxury hotel, that you can offer luxury service and be sustainable. So I think that's a great message as well.
Absolutely, and well, it's real here and now as well. I think everyone is trying their best. There's a long way to go. I actually did a podcast for the Institute of Hospitality a couple of weeks ago when we talked about sustainability, and it feels like now it's only really now that people are all coming to the table on this. That it's been something that we're kind of often running on, but we've got a long way to go as a
Yeah.
collective.
Yeah.
So it's great when you have people like Sue who are leading the way. They're demonstrating what's possible,
Yeah. And
and
what
that's
Sue
important.
said to us was basically, what gets measured gets done. And I think that as the industry overall tries to measure everything, that's where we'll see change.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's really, really great sharing stories, isn't it? It's very. I find it really uplifting to just hear. I think I was just talking to Harry Murray the other day around the fact that there at peak in the UK there are 3 million people that work in hospitality. That's 3 million very different stories. Where people come from, why they get into it, the roles that they do, the paths that they then take to move upwards, and all of those sorts of things. And I feel like if there's 3 million people out there in the UK, I've got a long way to go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, the diversity of stories, how people end up in hospitality, what they're able to achieve, it's really inspiring.
Yeah. What other themes have you found from your year?
Another one that I think is a really incredible story is that of Lisa Williams, not related to Sue, but
Yeah.
Lisa Williams is the executive housekeeper at the Grand in York. And what she's done is she's used what is kind of like an Uber style app. It's called Flex UK. And she basically doubled her staff, said to people, this was kind of when the pandemic hit, or maybe even a year or so into the pandemic.
Yeah.
And UK was, in the midst of a lockdown and then open up and whatever. She just said, "Look, I need staff. This is a city that has two universities. There are mothers that want to work, but they also want to be home for the school run. They want to be home when their kids get home from school." And she said, "If you want to work, you can work whatever hours you want to work." And she was able to do this with a combination of utilizing technology and then also just, a willingness to be open to flexibility.
Yeah.
And she's done a tremendous job. And actually, what she noticed is that it's more efficient because you have housekeepers starting all day long, and it mirrors the movement of the guests better. So you have efficiencies that way. So, like, people don't all just arrive at 7 a.m. They arrive all throughout the day. So now she has fresh housekeepers all throughout the day. The other thing that she noticed is that with the staycations, they'll add, I think that hotel has 207 rooms that they could, have a booking. They could add 15 rooms in a day. And she's like, now I have the staff to be able to turn 15 rooms, kind of on very short notice. So I think that that's a really inspiring and innovative story.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's doing a tremendous job.
It's genius in the sense that it's responding to the market conditions, basically, and actually it's almost a very, very simple idea, but nobody was looking at it that way. And yet she's been able to produce this method of working that, now I would assume that people would look from the outside in with very envious eyes.
Yeah, she said that actually, based on her story and her tenure, that then she was interviewed by like the UK Housekeeping Association. So she's a trendsetter for sure. She's a real innovative thinker. And she said, look, yes, to go from a staff of 30 to a staff of 50, it's more administration up front. And then she also does a lot of things to build, morale and things amongst her staff. And also, she's done a very outward approach for the housekeepers themselves. She really encourages them to interact with the guests. She encourages them to leave handwritten notes. So, a lot of different touch points that I think is something that as we see more automation in hospitality, that when you have a luxury product, she's really making touch points for the consumer.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? When it's wonderful to embrace technology, but not just for the sake of it. You've still got to be thinking about what's the ultimate goal here. Efficiency, yes, but not efficiency at the cost of a guest experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's three themes you've
That's
seen. I
three.
believe
I
you've
know
got
I said
five.
I had five. Oh, and food and beverage. So again, this is I think a really interesting progression because I think what you see in the media is that, a very male culture around food and beverage, and that is starting to change. And so this idea of a shouty kitchen, a lot of cursing and stuff like that, I think that we're going to see less and less of that moving forward as there are women who are doing things like becoming head chefs. There's a head chef now for the Four Seasons in New York downtown. You are seeing women as sommeliers. So actually, at I don't know if you've been by to see the renovation of the Carlton Jumeirah in Chelsea. Have
I've
you
only
seen that?
walked past the front door. I've not been in yet, but
Yeah,
yeah,
It's beautiful, and they have a woman as the head sommelier now, so overseeing a significant wine cellar there. Another area is bartenders. We've covered mixology, women, really making headway there in places like Mexico and Las Vegas. And in the UK as well. Here, I think is at the Connaught actually, which just won, I think for the second year in a row, 50 best, the top bar in the world. One of the bartenders there is a female, Mara Mila. So just the range of women making change in food and beverage. And then also at the corporate side, the head of food and beverage for Marriott is a woman. And just seeing how they bring a softness to that, very macho culture of the kitchen, I think is really interesting. And it's just, where you see the movement, then you see other women coming up behind them because this idea of representation really matters. And women, let's say you start out as a waitress, you now can see a path to become a bartender, to become, the head of food and beverage. So, I mean, just last week I covered Lenny Moras, who's the head of food and beverage for the Beaumont in Mayfair.
Yeah.
And she just did a complete overhaul of their restaurants there. And I popped by there the other night. I mean, the place is packed, the great energy, and it's just wonderful to see, women making progress in this area of the hotels.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorite hotels as well in London. I've always just loved the atmosphere in the Beaumont. We had the old general manager on, Yanis,
Oh, he's so
who's
nice.
off traveling somewhere at the moment, but yeah, he'll be back for sure. But yeah, no, it's really as you say, it's really really great to see progress being made. I mean, I would assume there's still a long way to go, but it's great to see that things are changing.
Yes, they are. And I mean, and we kind of touched on this, but also, and I think you've covered this before, but the hoteliers charter, that was started by a woman as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I haven't had
Sally
Sally on
Beck.
yet.
Yeah,
She's
you gotta have
but
Sally
she
on.
has promised to be on at some point in the future. So yeah, watch this space for that. But yeah, she's just a legend.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, women are really taking it upon themselves to see how they can come up with different solutions to the labor shortage, which, isn't just a hospitality issue, it's in many industries. But I do feel that women are really helping to find solutions.
Yeah, I think the cultural element of, and I really don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping here, but like softening things down, and especially from a leadership perspective, that really just centers around empathy and the ability to put yourself in the shoes of the people you're dealing with on an individual basis, and not just create a leadership style which is one size fits all. And yeah, I mean, there's some amazing women leading the way on that. I think you also mentioned in our previous chats around Anne Golden at the Pan Pacific. She's another wonderful example, another friend of the show as well. And anytime I ever see Anne post anything on LinkedIn or anything like that, the love out there for that woman is
Yeah.
incredible. Which means that she's touching people in the right way whenever she's leading them. So yeah, more of that, please, for sure.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I would say that's the kind of the other theme is that you just have women now leading these iconic, city center hotels and resorts that you just wouldn't have seen a woman in that role even 10 years ago. Yeah, so Anna's a great example of that. I don't know if you've been by the new Nomad in London, but that Michelle is running that hotel at the moment, and while the other female GM is actually on maternity leave, and I think due to come back at any moment. But again, a great example of allowing, of a company allowing women to be women, to take maternity leave and do what they need to do,
Yeah,
and then to have a career to come back to. I think, we're hopefully seeing change from the industry overall, not just in flexibility, but also making the right changes to allow women to keep progressing even during their childbearing years.
Absolutely. It's quite remarkable that we're still having to talk about that, quite frankly, because at the end of the day, it's a simple fact of life that is going to happen for the vast majority of women as they advance in their career. And previously, the choice has been give up your career for a little while and try and get back to it when when you can. So
Yeah.
it's great to see that things are also changing in that respect, because that's way overdue.
Yeah, I think technology will enable that too because, you know, it will be interesting to see how the industry progresses. But, historically, if you want to move up in hotel operations, you have to be willing to relocate. Now, with technology, if let's say you are married or in a partnership, like maybe your partner can easily move now place to place because people are working more remotely. So that'll be interesting, I think, to observe over the next few years to see if women are able to make more progress quickly because they can more easily, move from job to job or take advantage of opportunities where maybe they wouldn't have been able to before because they had a family to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Superb. So, what could people expect if they were to sign up to Hertelier? What would they? What kind of things would they see?
Well, just incredible stories like the ones we've spoken about, different seeing women in different career paths. And then also, we every week on a Sunday, I send out something called the roundup, which basically I work on all week, reading all the different news outlets from the trade to the regular business press to kind of world news. And I wrap that up into one easily readable, digestible Sunday newsletter that's free. So anyone can sign up. Just go to www.hertelier.com, which is HERTELIER.com. And there's a place to sign up for the email or find us on LinkedIn, and Hertelier is just Hertelier, or on Instagram, also at Hertelier.
Yeah, yeah. Keep it simple. But yeah, I mean, I do get your weekly roundup in my inbox, and let me tell you, it is packed full of. So I mean, you're definitely taking your passion for reading the news and doing something really quite wonderful with it. But yeah, I mean, I'd take my hat off to you because there is a lot of really wonderful stuff in there.
Well, thanks, Bill. That really means a lot. And yeah, I mean, the response has been amazing for the weekly roundup, and we have a really high open rate, and the list keeps growing. So that's really gratifying, actually, because I love doing it, and people seem to love reading it. So that's a great fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in terms of what's coming down the pike, this month, well, every month is Women's Month on her tenure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so March isn't necessarily special in that regard, but the rest of the world seems to want to focus on women for the month of March. So we have a lot of interesting partnerships and things that are happening throughout the month, and
Like
probably
this one.
extra. Yes, like starting with this one, I should say. And
Bless.
yeah, and then just, probably some extra content this month. But in general, I tend to put out between 3 and 5 original stories a week for people to
Wow.
read. And it's literally just like taking a peek, very similar to your podcast here, where you can just take a peek at somebody's career, their life, what kind of lessons they've learned, who's inspired them, what they think is, next for the industry. We even have recipes on there. We actually, in the last few weeks, have launched a column about what it's like as a hotelier to look after pets. Every
Right.
single brand has rolled out a pet program. Incidentally, I didn't get to talk about this, but that was one of the first things I did at Lowe's Hotels. We were the first chain to introduce a pet program. And that was me and my former boss, Charlotte St. Martin, and the
Fantastic.
marketing team at Lowe's. So I don't know if people should be thanking us or not,
Yeah.
but we definitely got the pet and hotels situation rolling. But I don't know if you saw, but Hilton put out their trends report at the end of last year, and they said that pet travel was the number three, filter when people are going to book.
Yeah, I quite believe it. As a pet owner myself, we're always looking for dog friendly. And when I say dog friendly, I mean dog friendly. Like they can come and be with you in the restaurant, not at not at the table, but on a lead right next to you. And the amount of places that will only allow you to do that in a place that's got no carpet,
Right.
or anything. And we always say, most of the time, pets are better behaved than children.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. That is the line, and we had that. But it's funny because we actually, one of the funny stories. I know that's one of the things you like to cover with your guests, but I'll
Absolutely.
never forget. So when I was working for Lowe's in the corporate office, the flagship hotel was literally across the street. It's called the Regency. It's on Park Avenue, and it's a beautiful hotel. And at the time, I remember the general manager telling me that shortly after we had introduced the pet program, we put dog treats in the minibar. So he had a guest that came one morning and called him up and was basically like, I ate dog treats. So like the guy came back after having a couple drinks and basically like just chowed down on these dog
the
treats.
the bar snacks.
Yeah. And he was like trying to get money back or something. I don't know. And the GM, it was just a funny story. But yeah, that is, I guess, one of the things. But yes, the stories that generally you heard is that people who travel with their pets, the pets are generally really well behaved.
Yeah.
Though we are trying at Hotelier to get some of the funnier stories. Somebody sent me, and I haven't written about it yet, about a greyhound that figured out how to open the door to the guest room. So like in the night while the owners were sleeping, opened the door and like was just walking up and down the hallway.
Mm.
And this woman was like the MOD, and she's like, "What's this greyhound doing? Like walking the halls?" And then realized that it was staying in a guest room and had figured out how to open the door.
Fantastic. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Where there's a will, there's a way with dogs, for sure. We have a willful beagle
Oh, do
who
you?
she's I think she's in a constant state of problem solving. Like,
Yeah.
how can I get to the food? That's basically that's it. That's what she's driven by, and a little bit of love now and again for those who feed her. But there we are. It's all about the food.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, I also I did want to bring this up, and I know you sent me a story that was kind of terrifying, and contemplated whether this is the right forum to talk about it because it's light and fluffy and all of those sorts of things. But actually, your story around 9/11, I also really keen on poignant stories and stories that have power. So yeah, I'd love to hear what went down in your experience of that fateful day.
Yeah, I mean, a very, just a scary time for obvious reasons. I actually was on my way to work late that morning in a taxi cab, and I remember hailing the cab, and the guy said, "Where are you going? Because I'm not going to go downtown. There's some kind of fire." And I actually lived on the Upper West Side, and my office was on the Upper East Side. And I said, "No, no, I'm just going across the park." And he took me, and by the time I got in the office, everybody was glued to the TV. And yeah, devastating on so many levels. But in terms of
Yeah.
the industry, and I think there are some parallels to be drawn to how you see the hospitality industry in general now after the pandemic, but really pulled together. Actually, John Tish was amazing as the head of something called New York Rising, and just really gathered together as an industry to once, getting beyond the tragedy, how to rebuild tourism, how to get people to come back to New York. And they, by working together, I think the big lesson was that the industry, by working together, really was able to overcome that quite quickly. And also, that they were able to engender a sense of patriotism almost around travel, which I thought was really wonderful to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the thing about adversity is regrettably a necessary part of life, but actually, the good that can come out of it. I mean, just look at the good that has come out of the industry on the back of the last couple of years. Some of the work, I mean, you mentioned the Hoteliers Charter just as an example. That was born out of a moment in time that allowed Sally to contemplate what needs to change. And there's definitely been a shift to working more closely together as a unit rather than just being this competitive monster. And that's critically changing at ownership level as well. And that's the key thing for me, is that I think that anyone who works in the hotel industry kind of is geared for hospitality. You've got a hospitality mentality, and one of the elements of that is collaboration to get stuff done. And now owners are beginning to see that that can really also bear fruit from a financial standpoint. If that's what if people come together and make everything better, then look what we're left with in 5 years' time.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel that there is abundance, that working together actually just brings more people to wherever you are,
Yeah,
or, you manage that. And yeah, I think the camaraderie, I actually think Kate Nichols from UK Hospitality does an amazing job. She's
no doubt.
also a really inspirational leader who I think has done a great job for the industry in terms of helping to work with government to get people to collaborate. I saw her
Yeah.
speaking at the Master Inn Holders Conference, and she was really inspiring. And I think everyone in the room was sort of rapt in attention to hear what she had to say.
Yeah. She's just kept us on the map
Yeah.
at a time when the government have had quite a lot to deal with. So no, I think the work she's done is breathtaking, and she deserves all the praise that comes her way.
Yeah. Yeah. She's great. She's an interview I'd like to get if you're listening, Kate.
She's a friend of the show as well. I think
Is
she was
she?
episode. She was one of the early
Oh, was
adopters,
she one of the
actually.
early ones? I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to go
yeah.
back to your library and listen to that one. I'm still working my way through the library, but I'm a huge fan of your show. I'm so
Bless
really
you.
thank you so much for having me on. I'm really honored to be on the show with you
Oh,
today.
you're so welcome. Likewise. I think the work you're doing is just amazing. We're going to make the next 20 minutes about just patting each other on the back.
Yeah,
That's yeah. But genuinely, I think what you've done and achieved in a very short space of time, even to the professionalism of how you present your work, I take my hat off to you. You're clearly doing something to do with your calling, because that comes through in the quality and your passion for what you're trying to achieve.
thank you, Phil. I feel the same about your show, and I hope that we should do a live one in London. Like a special one, maybe with an audience or
Well,
something.
God, I listen to a lot of podcasts actually in lots of interest areas for me, and one of the ones that I jumped on last year was a podcast called High Performance.
Oh, I've
And
not heard of that one. I'm
yeah,
also a big podcast nerd. I love podcasts.
yeah, and they interview people who have achieved great things in their
Okay.
life, just to see if there's any lessons that we can all take from that. And they're going on a live tour, and at the moment, and you just think to yourself, okay, I have a humble little show, and
Yeah.
maybe one day I could do a live podcast. It's yeah, I think we've got a few years in the making yet, but I have aspirations.
Yeah, I'm there for you. I am there for that live show. I'm ready for that. I think that
Bless
would be
you,
really fun.
bless you.
You should do it like, as part of one of these conferences or something, just to do like a half hour, I don't know, or an hour. It would be
Yeah.
fun. Get the energy of the crowd.
Yes, if
Yeah.
anybody's listening out there,
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Yeah.
Everything is possible.
I love
Great
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Before we go, just one final question, really, which I'd like to ask everyone is what would be your kind of top 3 reasons for someone to join the hospitality industry?
Oh, I love this question. Thank you for asking. Uh, First of all, especially after all the women that I've spoken with, if you want a career where you can see the world, hospitality is definitely it. Just the amount you can, of exposure you can get to working in different cultures, seeing different cultures, learning about different cultures. So I think for that, it's amazing. I also think if you're a person who likes the possibility of doing something different every single day, I think hotel operations is amazing for that. Likewise, if you're a person, and I consider myself this kind of a person as well, like who enjoys project work, I think that is also one of the amazing things about hospitality is that you can kind of, see something from start to finish. It could be over a few years, it could be as short as a month. I mean, there are just so many, I would say, project oriented jobs within hospitality. That was already 3. I would say if I'm allowed to add a bonus fourth
Oh,
and
go. Yeah.
fifth
Unleash.
would be, if you are a people person, if you get energy from being around people, there is not, I mean, I can't even think of a career that even competes with hospitality. And fifth, I would say, along with, the business of operating hotels and restaurants and all that, there's also the other side of it, which is, kind of the real estate end of it, which again, if you're more of an analytical person and also in the technology side of it, if you're really more of an analytical person, I would say either the real estate revenue management, so I feel like no matter what type of personality you are, there is a wonderful career ahead of you in hospitality.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because I think a lot of time, and I'm guilty of this as well, because that's kind of my personality is I love nothing more than being around people. But
Right.
actually, if you don't particularly enjoy the front facing element of dealing with the public and doing that side of the business, there's plenty of opportunity away from the public eye in support services and, as you say, in analytical work and tech and IT and all of these things, maintenance. It's there is a job for everyone in
Yeah.
hospitality, for
And
sure.
you still benefit from working for, if you work for a hotel company, they all offer employee rates, even if your job isn't one that's going to take you from, place to place, like you still have the benefits of working for a hotel company, which, usually include, reduced rates when you go on vacation. Some hotel companies even offer free hotel nights or, part of that as your compensation, which it's just an incentive to see the world, which I think is if that's your thing, that's a
Yeah,
great thing.
yeah, absolutely, great stuff. How would people, if they want to chew the fat with you or learn more about what you're doing, what's the best method for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, check out the site at www.hertelier.com. So that's Hertelier. The great place to find me is on LinkedIn. Again, just look for Hertelier, or my name is Emily Canders Goldfisher. Yeah, I would say those are the best places. We're also on Instagram at her.telier.
Oh, very nuanced difference there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Somebody else had Hertelier on Instagram. I was too late for that one.
Great stuff. Well, look, thank you very much, Emily, and
Thanks,
happy
Phil.
International Women's Day. And yeah, wish you all the very best for the year ahead. And perhaps we can do this again next year,
Yeah,
and we'll learn how you've made progress in that time.
I would love that. Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you and to be on your show.
You're very, very welcome. Take care.
Thanks.
See you soon. And there we have it. It's always a delight to get some time with people doing incredible things, and what Emily has achieved so far is wonderful, showcasing the amazing things that our female hospitality workforce get up to. You don't have to wait long for your next dose of hospitality meats, as we'll be back tomorrow evening with another amazing journey from hospitality. I'll see you then.